spend a nice evening out as well.
So what about like land and water activities? I'm on the Aruba.com website. I was also on some of these other, trade websites that I belong to for travel agents. And there apparently is a lot to do here. What have you experienced? What do you recommend?
Lots of water activities. I've done ATV tours, which you can actually go through the town, and then you go up into that's the interesting part about Aruba is there's so many different terrains there. So you can have beach, and then you have a natural park, and then you have another island that they call the Palm Island that's off the coast. And then so they have a natural bridge that you could ride to. So I did an ATV tour that took us around the island and up to the lighthouse, and we got to see the natural bridge. Very dry to get there. So you won't see the lush greenery if you're going up by the natural bridge area. But I did a butterfly farm, an ostrich farm. I went to a donkey sanctuary.
Oh.
Yeah, a donkey sanctuary.
Those all sound like great kid activities.
Oh, excellent. There's plenty to do for families, couples, singles, honeymoons, anniversaries.
Sure.
And you can take your kids at any age to Aruba. There's activities for everyone. So if you go into Palm Island, you actually have to park on the island, and there's a ferry over, and there's beach, and there's banana boat rides, and water activities. You can snorkel, and all of your food and drinks and activities are included in the price.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these underwater submarine type things, or like the boats that have the glass bottoms, or even the bottom chamber with the windows. And you can do a sea trek, which you put a helmet on, and walk beneath the water too. Those are extra costs. I don't know how I feel about that. That sounds crazy.
That I haven't done.
Yeah.
So I can't speak on those because I haven't done that yet.
I've seen one that's a bicycle. Have you seen these like water trikes?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And there's one that's like motorized.
Yes. I've seen it. I don't know how I feel about that. Especially with those big fish. I don't know. Water gets me. Water just gets me. I like to be able to see through it, and that's fine. But then, like when you're so far down, like you're pretty isolated, right? Like what's down there? I don't know. Someday.
Well, the good thing is I haven't heard of any sharks in Aruba, so that's good.
Okay, great. What do you recommend as far as length of time for people to be there?
I wouldn't recommend 3 days. That's my personal preference because it's a several-hour flight. And I always think that that's a short time because what I always have told my clients is consider your first day and your last day travel time.
Yep.
So if you're only going for 3 days and 2 of them are travel time, or, you're spending most of your time in the airport, then that's not really a vacation. So I would say to go to Aruba, you should do at least a week at a minimum. If you can do longer, that's great because there's so much to do there. You can certainly not get bored.
Do you have a great success story, a funny story, or a situation that might have gone slightly wrong, but that you were able to triumph in for your clients?
I do. I actually have 2 stories.
Great.
One I would like to share is a personal one.
Okay.
But it's not really from Aruba, but it was always a funny story to me.
Sure.
And I still laugh about it to this day. But this was actually at a Disneyland experience. And if you don't mind if I shared this one.
Yeah, no, please.
And we went to Disneyland in California, and I was so excited to go to Cars Land, which is in the California Adventure at Radiator Springs Racers cars you get in.
Yep.
So I don't know if anyone's been there, they know you actually sit in a car.
Right.
And so we waited in line for 45 minutes. And when you get on, there's like 2 cars side by side, and you kind of navigate around Radiator Springs. And then you come to this one area, and then the cars like take off, and they literally race around Disneyland. you get on it, and so you go out, and, and you're kind of racing around, and it's just an adrenaline rush. For me, I'm not a big thrill ride. I don't enjoy going 300 feet in the air and dropping down, but I like speed. So test track and this ride was perfect. If I'm on the ground already, I can go fast. I can deal with that. So we go to take off, and the car next to us goes zooming out, and we're going about 2 miles an hour.
No.
So we thought, like, okay, well, maybe, it's our first time on the ride. Maybe we take off at some point and we're going to catch up.
Yeah.
We never did.
No.
We spent the entire ride, like, trudging along. But everybody on the ride was so great about it. We put our hands up, we screamed, and we did all these things
That's
as
really
if we were going fast.
You got to spend the most time on that ride of anyone.
We did. Yeah, we probably broke the record of the longest.
Well, I mean, maybe not awesome, but...
But we got back, and they told us, we saw, of course, they have cameras around, so they told us, you can ride again. And we rode again. But, of course, then we're all thinking, well, the thrill is gone now.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as fun the second time around going fast.
Go fast.
But that's my story that I've never forgotten, that experience.
And I'm glad everybody was a good sport about it and participated anyway. That's the way to do it.
Oh, it was a hilarious picture,
Yeah, and when you're in the happiest place on earth, be happy. Be happy.
Yeah,
so.
And how could you be upset? We weren't.
That's good.
But my success story actually does involve Aruba.
Okay.
And I sent a couple. Actually, the husband came to me and said, I want to plan an anniversary, and where do you recommend? And, of course, that was the first place that came to mind. Mm-hmm. So they went, and I planned everything for them. And when they returned, we sat down and we discussed it. And what I always did when my clients returned, I always asked them, what they did, what they liked, what they didn't like, what would they recommend? Did they have any, gotchas, need-to-know things maybe that I wouldn't be aware of?
Yep.
So we sat down and we talked. And at the conclusion, I said, so what did you like most about your trip? And he said the fact that all we had to do was show up.
Yep.
And that was so heartwarming for me. And he said everything went so perfectly. I could not ask for a better trip.
People can plan their own travel, but it can be stressful, and it takes a lot of time. And the goal is to know your clients well enough that you know what they're going to like, and that they can come to you and say, hey, what do you recommend? And you can say X, Y, Z, and then they show up, and they relax. Can you tell us your best or most memorable meal? It can be the best, flavor, experience, or it can be the most memorable, like you had a press-on nail in your meal or something.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I like to eat, so I could talk about, that's a whole podcast for me, talk about eating.
Me too, let's do it.
Yeah, dining experiences are definitely things I like to talk about. But I actually have... again, too, probably my best meal story would be last year, a group of ladies did a girls' trip to the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
And we rented a house, and there was 7 of us, and we had private chefs that came in. They came in early in the morning, and I'll tell you, I have to commend these ladies because I'm not big on cooking.
Yep.
But they cooked from sunup to sundown, and they prepared 3 meals for us. And that was probably the best meals I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah,
and it was so nice that they cooked it all, they put it on the table, and they cleaned up at the end for us every day, and we were there for 5 days.
That does sound amazing. I had a little taste of that one time. My husband came back from a deployment a couple years ago, and his uncle... said, they probably don't even want to go out. They just want to sit at home and enjoy each other's company. So he hired a private chef to come to our home and cook us a meal. And we just got to sit there and have wine. And this woman just came in and she did a wonderful job. And, to have 5 days of that sounds truly amazing.
5 days of 3 meals a day.
I don't even know if I could eat that
3
much
complete
food.
meals, and not just like, breakfast wasn't just like pancakes and bacon. I mean, it was a full spread. So they came with fresh fruit, and each day we had something different. That's the other thing I like. They didn't serve the same thing every day. So it was 3 completely different meals for 5 days.
It's incredible. So are they like assigned to this villa? Do they usually work? Yeah. So when you rent a villa and you ask for the chefs, they were the ones that we were given, and they were phenomenal. I mean, okay. I loved it. Good.
But my most memorable meal was probably in Aruba.
Okay.
Took my daughter there for her 16th birthday.
Okay.
And there's a place there called the Flying Fishbone.
Okay.
And it's a restaurant right on the beach. So I contacted them ahead of time, and I said, hey, I'm bringing my daughter here for her 16th birthday. I just really wanted to be special. It's our sweet 16. And they handled everything for me. And when we arrived, it was the most welcoming experience. I mean, you would have thought it was a wedding reception when we got there. I mean, the way it was decorated, and when we got there, they were waiting for us, and they escorted us down, and they had the table on the beach in the water.
What? That's awesome.
Yes. So you go down, and you take your shoes off, and they had a little rack. You set your shoes in. You sit there with your feet in the water, and there was a bouquet of flowers there. They brought her dessert. It had sparklers in it.
That's exciting.
Like we do on 4th of July. And our server knew exactly what time to take the photo. She came, she said, now's your perfect time to take your photos. So they planned it so that right at sunset, when we were finished with dessert, the sun was setting right at a particular point, and it was the most breathtaking photo I've ever taken with her there on the beach.
I bet she tells that story a lot. What a memorable, nice thing you did for her. That's awesome.
You know, the funny thing is with these millennials, they don't remember stuff like that. She probably says, oh, yeah, I did do that, didn't I?
You send her the podcast and tell her, there's a question for you in there. I want to know if you remember.
Yeah, but that was probably the most memorable for me.
That's great. Well, now is the time in the podcast where we kind of turn the program around, and you get to ask me a question as I've been pumping you for information for the last 40 minutes. So would you like to ask me a question? It can be about travel. It doesn't have to be. I will do my best to answer it.
Well, it's going to be about travel.
Okay.
So a while ago, there was a show, and actually Samantha Brown, who we talked about in the call this morning, was one of the hosts, and she was with another person, and I'm sorry, I can't recall his name.
Okay.
But they did a show where they went out and they picked random travelers
to
go on a trip, and it was all expense paid, and they only had like a certain amount of hours to do it. Mm-hmm. So you had to be prepared to go. So my question to you is, if you could go anywhere in the world on a spontaneous, all-expense-paid trip, where would you go? And where would you hope they would take you if you were selected?
Okay. Oh, gosh.
Well, if you only had a certain amount of time there, they only gave them so many days. So they took them to different destinations.
Yeah, so I was going to say I'd like to do some of, like, the colder options. Like, I'd like to do Alaska, maybe Antarctica. But it's time requirement. So I think that I would like to do Europe and some of, like, the behind-the-scenes art museums. Like, I would like to see the Rodin. I would like to be able to, like, the Mona Lisa is not that big of a painting, so it might be nice to have a little bit of more time to spend being able to examine or see some of these, pieces of art that in a guided tour you only have so much time or something along those lines. Also, when I was in Paris, I did not get to go up the Eiffel Tower because my baby could not handle the line, so we had to get out of it. So some of those get to the front of the line options are excellent, but they are expensive. So maybe some of the more crowded options in the world that I would like to go to in Europe, but that I don't want to wait in line. And at this point in my budget, I don't want to pay for like the express pass options. So I think that would be a good choice. Or maybe all like the Calendar Islands in Maine. That would be cool to do like island hopping, or in Greece, island hopping. like where you have to have a private boat hire, that could be really exciting.